welcome to Vegas Weekly, Volume 1, Number 1. It is Saturday, March 21st, 2020. Hope you enjoyed our new intro, some new music. We've retired the old Vegas Tips and Tricks theme song for now. Some new video, some fun logos. Wanted to make a special point of thanking my friend Paul. You know him as PJ, the bartender, the lounge extraordinaire, for all of the fun logos and such that he's contributed to the show. And if you're interested still, for a limited time, you can still get one of the Vegas Tips and Tricks mugs, including the original logo, the PJ's cocktail mug, as well as the Cocktail of the Week mug, and there's actually a t-shirt up on the site now. So if you're interested, it has the kind of funny logo at the that we used at the very beginning of today's program. So check that out if you'd like. There's a link in the show notes below. Excuse me, no, it's not that. Anyway, busy Saturday morning around here. Got the coffee going on. Not sponsored. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about the format of the show coming up. On a typical program, you will see me, at least briefly. We will do our little housekeeping notes, though we're retiring the Hoover for now. And then we'll introduce our guest segment, which for at least the next 5 or 6 weeks is Cocktail of the Week. We'll see beyond that, but we've got shows, I think, lined up well through April. So if you're interested in participating in Cocktail of the Week, being a guest mixologist, or have another idea for a segment on the show you'd like to do, let me know. You can reach me at jrswift@vegastipstricks.com. But the normal format after our guest segment, our Cocktail of the Week, will be me doing the news, which is not unusual. And then we will have a couple of additional segments. We will continue with our Vegas Tips Tricks every week, although for the next 10 weeks, we're not going to try to be too original and clever. We're going to be counting down the top 10 Vegas tips and tricks. You'll definitely want to tune in for that. I call it Vegas Tips and Tricks Classic. If ESPN can keep rerunning games, I can keep rerunning tips. So you'll want to tune in for that. And finally, we'll be doing our Week in Vegas History. This week in Vegas History. This week, all of those segments are being rolled up into one, as you might imagine, for obvious reasons. But before we get to that, just did want to mention we will continue, obviously, to do this show on Saturday every week, as it would indicate. And we do have a planned live stream coming up April 1st, and the idea will be to do those probably once a month, first Wednesday of the month, at around 8 o'clock Central Time. So pencil that in on your calendar. Some people have asked, am I still planning to go to Vegas at the end of April? I haven't canceled anything yet. I think the odds are significantly less than 50-50 that I'm actually going to be able to go. I did rebook my flight, saved another $80 or so. If it ends up I can't go, I'll save even more money. But I did actually cancel my last 3 nights at Luxor before they stopped taking reservations. So if I do end up going, I'll be booked somewhere else, probably again at one of the Caesars properties, because they're pretty much all comped at this point. But not really holding my breath on that, but you never know. We could have a miracle or a sudden turnaround. So let's hope we do. Speaking of miracles and sudden turnarounds, it's time to introduce our first guest mixologist. It's no secret that Cocktail of the Week was inspired by Cocktail of the Day, a short segment that is featured in pretty much every one of our guest mixologist vlogs. If you're not following, if you're not subscribed to Ben Heath here on the YouTube, you're going to want to do so. And if you've never met Ben before, you're about to. Today, he's going to introduce us to one of his favorite cocktails and a Vegas classic. So take it away, Ben.
Good evening, Vegas Tips and Tricks, and my name's Ben Heath, and tonight I will be bringing you Cocktail of the Week. I know you're used to PJ in his lovely robe, but I'm afraid I actually dressed for the occasion. So what cocktail are we making? This week we're going for a lemon drop martini. Pretty famous in the Cosmo in Vegas, so if you're ever gambling at the Cosmopolitan, make sure you ask for a lemon drop martini. You can get them whilst you're gambling. Also, pretty much one of my staple cocktails that I'll drink when I'm out in Vegas. There's the ingredients that you'll need for a lemon drop martini. So let's break those ingredients down. Firstly, you need vodka, Cointreau, sugar syrup, which you can buy in the shops. I made that. It's just 2 parts sugar to 1 part water, heated through and left to cool in the fridge. Obviously some fresh lemon juice, some lemons, and some sugar for the rim of the glass. Let's make it. So one of the first things you need to do with the glass is get some sugar around the rim of the glass, because a lemon drop martini is not the same without a rim. So just rub some lemon around the outside, have some sugar on a plate and move it round in a circular motion. That gives you that nice sugary glisten around the glass. So guys, the next part is to add the ingredients to your shaker. So we've got, first things first, some ice cubes, pretty important. Now we've got 25 ml or a single shot of the sugar syrup. It goes straight in there. We've got a single shot of either the triple sec or the Cointreau, so get that in there. Then we've got a single shot of the lemon juice. However, we will have a double shot of the vodka. So all that goes in there. Get the lid on your cocktail shaker. You want to shake the cocktail shaker for about 30 seconds. You should feel the shaker getting cold. I think that'll do. And then let's get the glass ready here. So the moment of truth. So we'll strain it through my mini strainer here. And there we go. There it is. The lemon drop martini. Do you know what? That's pretty good. That's a good way to start an evening, and not far off what you get at the Cosmo as well. Obviously, you can use the you can ask for the raspberry lemon drops at the Cosmo, but that's the standard one, and it's pretty nice if I don't say so myself.
Yeah, you probably could have guessed we were going to do the lemon drop martini today. Looks quite tasty. And again, if you'd like to submit your own entry and be a guest mixologist on Cocktail of the Week, please hit me up, let me know. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the new segments on the show is going to be This Week in Vegas History. But This Week in Vegas History is this past week or so. And so I thought it worthwhile to try to construct a bit of a timeline. Things have happened so quickly just over the past couple of weeks. Going back originally, the first confirmed case of the coronavirus in Nevada was in Las Vegas on March 5th. That's only 16 days ago. Seems like it could have been 16 months ago, given all of the sequence of events that have happened since then. Even prior to that, you were beginning to see some smaller conventions and shows that had decided to think better of it and cancel their Vegas meetings. You'd begun already to see some cutbacks in hours, some cutbacks in performances at some of the shows due to a softening demand. On the show a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the fact that, hey, go check your hotel reservations, go check your airlines, because you're seeing some prices drop. And that was, although not universal, something that a lot of people experienced around that time. So again, there was concern, but not a lot had happened really until about Wednesday, March the 11th, which seemed to be a turning point in a lot of different ways. The morning of March 11th, the NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters, which holds one of the largest conventions Las Vegas hosts throughout the year, announced that they were not going to hold their convention. They were going to cancel it, which of course immediately opened up an awful lot of hotel rooms in mid-April. And what would have been a very expensive time to visit Las Vegas suddenly became very cheap. But of course it also immediately raised some red flags and made people wonder if, if these guys were canceling out, what's next? And what was next would come very quickly. On that date, MGM Resorts announced that starting the following Sunday, they would be closing all 7 of their buffets. And it made sense if you thought about it. If there's any place where more people are touching the same utensils over and over again than a buffet, I don't know where it is. So it made a certain amount of sense. In and of itself, didn't necessarily create any sense of panic. Other than a couple of them, they're not really very good buffets. Anyway, sorry, MGM. But more or less immediately, Wynn said, well, we're not going to cancel our buffet, but we're going to have people serve you so that you're not touching all these utensils. We're going to take extra precautions. Well, that didn't last for very long. And maybe one of the reasons it didn't last for very long was what happened in Oklahoma City the night of March 11th, when an NBA game between the Utah Jazz and Oklahoma City Thunder was abruptly postponed due to what we later discovered was one of the players on the Jazz, Rudy Gobert, testing positive for the virus. The NBA, which had up to that point been considering doing what a number of college sports leagues had already announced they were going to do, and that is play games without spectators. But at that point they announced that they were suspending the season indefinitely. So that kind of made everybody take a deep breath and think, hey, this is really serious. And the next day would be another huge day in terms of this sort of domino effect. Wynn announced that, in fact, no, we're actually going to close our buffet, but we're also closing our theaters. We're also closing any of our nightclubs. And after the NBA announced its cancellation, the NHL canceled, Major League Soccer canceled, Major League Baseball canceled spring training and at least temporarily moved up their opening day at least a couple of weeks. And then later that afternoon, the real sort of bombshell, college basketball canceled March Madness, the NCAA basketball tournament, one of the biggest sporting events of the year, right up there with the Super Bowl. So that was huge. And that obviously was on the 12th. On the 13th, Friday the 13th, things kind of had settled in for a few days. At this point, that's only a little over a week ago. I was, becoming a little more nervous about Las Vegas. Definitely there was indications that, particularly after this past weekend, visitor traffic was going to drop way down. So we could definitely expect to see some more closures, some more reduced hours, and that was the case. But pretty much at that point, all of the nightclubs in Las Vegas announced that they were going to be shutting down. MGM did so. So disappointing. It was not a good Friday the 13th, and then things kind of settled over the weekend until Sunday, when there became, very early in the day, indications that something we had feared but perhaps not expected was actually going to happen. We were going to see casino hotel closures. Early in the day I got a tip on one of the other Facebook groups that Vdara was not accepting any reservations through, I think, April 13th, 14th. Checked it out, sure enough. At that point the other MGM properties were still showing availability, but it seemed like the writing was on the wall, and the writing on the wall proved to be correct. Shortly after the state of Nevada announced that they were going to be closing all the K-12 schools at least through April 6th, MGM announced that it would be closing its Las Vegas resorts starting that following Tuesday. I believe it was supposed to be basically Monday/Tuesday at midnight was the closing date on that, which obviously had the potential to displace a lot of people, except apparently past last weekend there weren't going to be a lot of people around anyway. Caesars did not announce any closures, but shortly after MGM that evening, the Wynn announced that it too would be following suit. They would be closing at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. And in most cases there was a little bit of a cushion there for hotel guests to get sort of moved out, but 24 hours or so at tops. So, the situation after last weekend was you had basically half of the Strip closed down. Downtown and off-Strip properties had not taken any action. Station casinos, Boyd, the Caesars properties on the Strip. At that point, Venetian Palazzo, Treasure Island, none of those places had announced any closures at that point. And you can say there was irresponsibility there on their part, but there were still a lot of people in Las Vegas last weekend and even through the early part of this week. So we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. This isn't a program about politics or medicine today. It's just about what we've been dealing with over the past week or 10 days. So now you move into Monday, which is March 16th. That's not even a week ago. At that point, Caesars announced that it would be closing its buffets and scaling back the hours at most of its restaurants, some of which they had already done. But that the casino and the hotels would remain open. In a move that was widely expected, the NFL announced on the same day that there would not be any public events for the NFL draft, April 23rd through the 25th. And basically the draft would go on, but it would not go on in Las Vegas as scheduled, which, again, I don't think surprised anybody. Later that day, we got the announcement that the Cosmopolitan would close in basically a couple days. I think they gave a 3/18 closure date at that point, which again, another, as I think I mentioned at the time, another domino falling into place. But if there was a sort of day when it all came back to us and sort of came, all the last domino in effect fell on the 17th, St. Patrick's Day of all things, probably the least festive St. Patrick's Day you will ever see in Las Vegas. In the afternoon hours, we did finally get an announcement from Venetian Palazzo that they would be shutting down at least through the 1st of April. And it wasn't long thereafter that the governor of Nevada basically said, hey, I need all of non-essential businesses, all casinos to close for the next 30 days. And there was no real resistance among the major casino companies. I'm guessing some of them have been sort of called in and had been part of this discussion. And so that night already, most of the casinos were shutting themselves down in the early hours of the evening. And I think most had completely shut down by midnight that night, which left at least a few people that I know more or less stranded in Las Vegas without much to do. Most were able to get an early flight home, although it was a bit of an ordeal. And that ordeal would get even worse on Thursday morning when one of the air traffic controllers at McCarran would test positive for the virus. The tower would be closed. It remains closed. It said at the time it would be closed for cleaning. Now, it's not really as, it's dire, but it's not as dire as it seems. You can still run an airport without an on-site air traffic control system, but obviously you're running it at a much lower capacity. People who have been through the Las Vegas airport in the last few days report that it is basically a ghost town and there are very few flights in or out. So even if you thought you'd be a crazy man and go to Las Vegas just to check out how desolate it is, yeah, probably not even going to find a flight. If you do, it's not going to be fun. I have some friends who basically it took them a good 40 hours to get all the way home as a result of all the cancellations and all the issues. So definitely not a fun time. And then finally yesterday we got a more stringent order from the governor that said, hey, I wasn't kidding the first time, now I really mean it. I need all these non-essential businesses to close because not all of them have. Certainly not all of them in Las Vegas. The mayor has been somewhat resistant to some of these closures and shutdowns. I think it's not an exaggeration to say that. And the city has not been particularly proactive in enforcing any of this. So it definitely was sort of scolding as well. We've also heard that the K through 12 schools in Nevada, originally they had been postponed through at least April 6th. That's been extended to April 16th now. If you're interested, obviously you can go on the internet. There are dozens and dozens of videos and photographs people have posted over the last couple of days, many of them Vegas residents, driving up and down the strip, showing, you know, what's just really, truly staggering footage. No one being there, hotels being closed, somehow locked down. The stores didn't even have locks on them. They had to figure out how to lock people out. So it's an unprecedented time. You know, we're looking at basically nothing in Las Vegas, at least through the middle of April. And my suspicion is it'll go longer than that. Certainly hope it doesn't. But we will continue to keep you up to date on the news out of Las Vegas, good, bad, or indifferent. The tip of the week, though, is if you'd like sort of up-to-the-minute coverage of this, consider checking out the Las Vegas Review-Journal. It's a decent newspaper. I think they've got some very good reporters, particularly on the casino bit. And they normally have a paywall. You can subscribe for a few months at a nominal price. But they have a coronavirus page, which you can check out for free, and it will keep you up to date with what's going on in Nevada in terms of business or the spread of the virus or whatever, on the assumption that many of you who are watching this are probably people that are very interested in Las Vegas and consider it a kind of second home. Speaking of all of you people that have been watching, we had an unprecedented growth in the number of people checking out the show last week, perhaps at the hope that it really was the last one. Fooled you. So if we have any new visitors this week, any new people checking out the program, thank you, welcome. I'd hoped to debut Vegas Weekly in a more upbeat sort of environment than we're currently in, but we will cope, we will go forward. I know there have been a lot more people doing live streams and group chats over the past few weeks, and certainly we're all grateful, I think, nowadays that we do have the internet and the opportunity to communicate with people as we are more and more isolated as a result of this virus and the aftermath of it. So I do hope that each one of you stays safe and well and washes your hands and such things. I hope that you and all of us will have a great and lucky week. We will see you soon.